He's internationally recognized for being the most lovable employee of Las Vegas' gold and silver pawn shop.
It's been nearly 17 years since we started filming Pawn Stars, and this is long awaited, long overdue. Okay, I mean, Magic is one of those games where some of the cards are very expensive and you need them to play your deck, but you also want them for your collection.
In March 2016, law enforcement searched Chumlee's residence in connection with a sexual assault allegation. While no evidence of that crime turned up, they discovered something else entirely. Hidden behind closed doors was a vault he hesitated to unlock inside, a pole for dancing. He was suddenly facing a possible 70-year sentence. The public feared his days on screen were finished, but the raid was just the start. What unfolded afterward stunned followers, fellow cast members, and even the court. The humorous Pawn Stars figure was hiding secrets far deeper than anyone thought. I'd put in 8 hours daily at Quiznos and another 4 at the pawn store. I once went 135 days in a row without a break. Austin Lee Russell, born September 8, 1982, in Henderson, Nevada, grew up in a modest 6-member household. His parents weren't wealthy. His dad worked as a DJ, while his mom held a casino job. This meant Chumlee's early life was split: Las Vegas's bright lights and energy outside, but simple, frugal living at home. It taught him early on to stay grounded and work hard, no matter the glitz around him. At age 12, he picked up a nickname that would define his life. One of his friend's fathers said he resembled Chumlee, the walrus from the old Tennessee Tuxedo cartoon. The nickname stuck. It began as a joke, but soon became the identity everyone knew him by. That innocent comment gave him a unique edge. Later, people remembered him easily when he popped up on TV screens nationwide. Chumlee wasn't an only child. He grew up with 3 siblings. One of his closest friends was Corey Harrison. The pair were typical kids from Henderson, hanging out and enjoying life. But Corey's family owned the gold and silver pawn shop, something that would later change Chumlee's destiny. As they got older, Chumlee began spending more time at the shop, eventually becoming a fixture in the business. While I'd love to do a Chumlee spin-off show, we film 80 episodes each year. It's just insane. When the shop became the center of the hit series Pawn Stars, that friendship with Corey blossomed into something even greater. Their playful interactions became part of the show's magic. Their bond wasn't just friendship, it became entertainment that fans loved. Academics weren't Chumlee's strength. He dropped out of high school, one of just 2 in his family not to graduate. The other was his brother, Sage. It seemed like the end of the road, but Chumlee wasn't one to give up. He found his own route to success. He leaned into his likability, sharp instincts, and people skills to build a career many college graduates could only dream of. Austin Lee Russell aka Chumlee walked into the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas in 2003 at the age of 21. Considering his close ties to Corey Harrison, many assumed he'd land a high-level role instantly. That wasn't the case. Chumlee began as a janitor and tester. He cleaned, mopped, and took on whatever tasks others avoided. Despite knowing the owners, he had to earn his place the old-fashioned way. There were no favors. Day by day, he studied the business, learning how to differentiate valuable items from junk. Those early experiences turned out to be invaluable. Between 2003 and 2008, Chumlee worked quietly behind the curtain. Back then, the shop was just a local pawn store far from the tourist attraction it would become. He was hands-on with everything, checking electronics, authenticating collectibles, tracking rare items like vintage guitars and coins. He came across every kind of oddity. When a TV production crew came searching in 2008 for a pawn shop to build a reality show around, Chumlee wasn't their focus at first. But his quirky personality and deep love for pop culture soon made him stand out. When Pawn Stars began shooting in July 2009, Chumlee was ready. He wasn't just background help anymore. He had become a key part of the crew. Initially cast as the goofy sidekick, the guy to laugh at, he was meant to be comic relief. But audiences saw something different. They loved his relaxed vibe and unique sense of humor. His natural charm shone through. He didn't try to be famous, and that authenticity made people connect with him. By 2012, Chumlee had become a fan favorite. He was receiving as many as 60,000 letters a month. His image appeared on mugs, posters, and t-shirts, outselling. Even Rick Harrison's merchandise. Fans would line up at conventions just to meet him. I'm doing this deal to show Rick how I can use something from inside the shop, flip it, and end up with a profit even bigger than if I'd paid in cash. He had evolved from sidekick to centerpiece. What shocked many was how much he truly knew. Beneath the laid-back act was a real connoisseur. He had a sharp eye for vintage pinball machines and rare collectibles. He could tell real sports memorabilia from fakes with ease. His sneaker collection had over 200 pairs. With some worth thousands, he had a deep love for toys and old-school video games, and could share the backstory of nearly every retro console and cartridge from the 80s and 90s. At the shop, Chumlee became the go-to expert for anything pop culture. But as his fame grew, tragedy hit. Pawn Stars premiered in July 2009, just weeks after Chumlee's father passed away from pancreatic cancer at only 5'4". Instead of celebrating, Chumlee was grieving. He later shared how that loss motivated him to work even harder, honoring his father's memory. Fans who learned about his heartbreak showed their support, adding emotional depth to his growing popularity. He often credits his father for instilling his strong work ethic and his love for collectibles. Every deal he makes, every item he studies, feels like a tribute to the man who raised him. As Chumlee's fame expanded, so did his lifestyle. He had wealth, fans, and success. But behind the scenes, his personal habits were beginning to shift. He started buying luxury cars, collecting designer sneakers, and spending on lavish parties. This wasn't the same down-to-earth guy who once cleaned pawnshop floors. He moved into a large home in Las Vegas. It had everything: custom furniture, a game room, and a pool fit for a celebrity. While this all seemed harmless, those closest to him noticed something darker. Chumlee was becoming dependent on a fast life. "I'm not just a reality TV guy. I've always loved art and music. People don't see that side of me, but it's real." Soon, reports started emerging that Chumlee was part of a partying crowd in Vegas. Clubs, VIP lounges, and social media photos with bottles and models began flooding the internet. He wasn't just attending these events, he was often the center of attention. This nightlife scene began to cloud his judgment. Friends noticed mood swings. He became more reclusive. His weight, once a humorous part of his character, was now a health risk. Fans who met him in person saw he looked tired and stressed. Some even said he seemed off. Still, the show kept rolling. Chumlee kept smiling on camera, hiding what was unraveling off screen. "When I got my first big check from the show, I didn't know what to do with it. I bought 5 cars in a week. Looking back, that was a dumb move." Chumlee had become a household name, but unlike Rick or the old man, he wasn't used to managing large amounts of money. He received lucrative deals, appearances, endorsements, merchandise, royalties, but lacked financial discipline. Instead of investing, he splurged. There were cars, watches, and expensive meals. He started hosting wild house parties that drew a rotating crowd of strangers. His home, once his sanctuary, became a revolving door. Friends tried warning him. Some staff at the pawn shop voiced concern. But Chumlee didn't listen. He was living the dream, at least on the surface. Then came March 9, 2016. Police officers arrived at his house with a search warrant. Chumlee had been named in a sexual assault investigation. While the accusation didn't lead to those charges, the raid revealed something else entirely. Inside his home, investigators found firearms, marijuana, and a collection of other substances packaged and stored in ways that raised suspicions. "What's in my house is my business. I didn't invite anyone to come looking through my personal stuff." That discovery shocked fans. Chumlee, the funny, lovable sidekick, suddenly faced serious legal trouble. News spread fast. Headlines questioned whether he'd be fired from the show. Some viewers felt betrayed. Others offered support. Pawn Stars went quiet. The shop refused to comment. For the first time, the future of Chumlee's TV career was uncertain. Online forums filled with rumors. Some believed he'd never return. Others speculated he'd been set up. But one thing was clear: Chumlee had hit rock bottom. Court documents later revealed he was charged with multiple felony counts related to drug possession and firearm ownership. He was staring at a possible 70-year sentence if convicted on all charges. That figure sent shockwaves across the internet. Fans asked, how could this have happened? How did a fun-loving TV personality end up in this situation? When I saw the number of years they were talking about, I thought, that's it. I'm done. I messed up my whole life for nothing. His legal team went to work, negotiating plea deals and working through the charges. Chumlee eventually pleaded guilty to a felony, weapons charge, and a gross misdemeanor for attempted drug possession. As part of the deal, he agreed to counseling and probation. He didn't serve time in prison, but the damage to his reputation was already done. Porn stars faced pressure. Would they let him return? Was the brand damaged? The show took a brief pause before announcing that Chumlee would remain a part of the cast. That decision was met with mixed reactions. Some fans felt he got off easy. Others believed everyone deserves a second chance. Chumlee himself vowed to change. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm working every day to be better. That's all I can do. After the legal storm settled, Chumlee began focusing on personal improvement. He started therapy and made serious changes to his lifestyle. He cut ties with toxic people, slowed down his partying, and began focusing on his health. His weight, once over 300 pounds, began dropping. He shared his journey publicly, posting updates about his transformation. Fans began to return slowly but surely. Many appreciated his honesty and resilience. Chumlee wasn't hiding anymore. He was owning up to his past. Though his legal troubles were behind him, the emotional toll lingered. Trust had been broken. He had to rebuild his relationships, not just with fans but with his colleagues and family. He talked openly about anxiety and stress, issues he had long buried. For the first time, people saw a different side of Chumlee, not just a funny man but a flawed human one. He wasn't trying to make people laugh anymore. He was trying to heal. It's weird. People think we're rich, untouchable celebrities, but we go through the same stuff: loss, pressure, fear. I just happened to do it on camera. As porn stars continued filming, Chumlee slowly reintegrated into the cast. Rick and Corey stood by him, though they kept their distance in public. The show began to change. So did Chumlee's role. He was still funny, but he was more thoughtful, more reserved. Behind every joke was a man who had nearly lost everything, and in many ways, that made fans love him even more. After the legal storm passed, Chumlee faced a new reality. The spotlight hadn't vanished, but it now cast a different light on him. No longer just the comic relief of porn stars, he had become a symbol of public downfall, the fight to rebuild. While some fans distanced themselves, others watched closely, curious to see if he'd bounce back. I knew I had to do something different. I couldn't keep living like I was invincible. Chumlee began focusing on his health. He committed to a strict diet and regular workouts. He cut out junk food, reduced sugar, and hired a personal trainer. Within months, the difference was visible. He dropped dozens of pounds and looked more energized. Social media followers took notice. They flooded his posts with support and encouragement. Fitness became a kind of therapy for me. It gave me structure. I needed that. Not only was he changing physically, but his mindset was shifting too. He started talking openly about anxiety and depression. In interviews and online posts, he shared the struggles of fame, pressure, and personal demons. His honesty resonated with many, especially fans who had their own battles. Chumlee went from being a meme to a message: fall down, but get back up. He also returned to the pawn shop, this time with a different attitude. He wasn't just there for laughs. He wanted to contribute. He learned more about the items coming in, asked thoughtful questions, and tried to expand his role on the show. Rick and Corey noticed. So did the producers. I had to earn my place back, not just on the show, but in people's respect. Outside of work, Chumlee ventured into entrepreneurship. He opened a candy shop in Las Vegas called Chumlee's Candy on the Boulevard. The store was located next to the pawn shop, making it a convenient stop for fans. It offered sweets, vintage candies, and signed memorabilia. Chumlee took pride in the shop, often visiting in person to meet customers, that it was a fresh start, something fun, something clean. Business boomed, especially with tourists. Fans lined up not just for candy, but for a chance to meet him. He posed for pictures, signed autographs, and listened to their stories. Some thanked him for being real. Others shared how his journey had inspired them to change their own lives. That's when I realized my mess-ups could help other people feel less alone. Despite his improved image, Chumlee never forgot the media backlash he once faced. Every step forward came with criticism. Some still labeled him a criminal or called for his removal from TV, but he stayed focused. reminding himself that growth takes time and that not everyone will forgive. I'm not trying to win everyone over, I'm just trying to be better than I was yesterday. He also spoke about the toll that public shame can take. He described nights where he couldn't sleep, overwhelmed by guilt and regret. He said therapy helped him understand his patterns, his need for validation, and his fear of failure. Opening up, even when it was painful, helped him reconnect with his true self. People think being on TV makes life easier. Sometimes it does, but it also makes your mistakes 1,000 times louder. As his transformation continued, fans began embracing him again. Episodes featuring Chumlee saw a rise in ratings. He was still funny but more grounded. He became a fan favorite, not just for laughs but for resilience. His Instagram became a place of positivity, where he posted progress updates, motivational messages, and family photos. He even became an advocate for mental health, urging followers to seek help if they were struggling. You don't have to be famous to feel pressure. You don't have to be broken to ask for help. Chumlee's story was turning from tragedy to testimony. His comeback was not flashy, it was slow, raw, and human. He didn't pretend to be perfect. He admitted when he messed up. He stayed humble, and that honesty, ironically, made him more loved than ever. The producers of Pawn Stars noticed the shift. They began featuring Chumlee more prominently. He traveled to special events, appeared on spin-off shows, and even hosted segments. His insight improved. His jokes had depth. He was no longer just the funny guy. He had become a voice of redemption in a show built around value. I used to think my only worth was making people laugh. Now I know my story has value too. As years passed, Chumlee continued. His quiet transformation, the scandals that once defined him, slowly faded into the background. He was no longer just the guy who messed up. He had become the guy who turned things around. Pawn Stars remained successful, and so did his role in it. His screen time was steady, and fans appreciated his unique blend of humor and heart. I never thought I'd become an example, but maybe that's what life wanted for me. He continued running his candy store, now a tourist staple. What started as a side project had become part of his brand. He took pride in its success, not just for the money, but for what it represented: redemption, growth, and second chances. Visitors often came just to say, "Thanks for getting back up." Chumlee also deepened his personal relationships. He reconnected with family, made peace with old friends, and kept his inner circle small. He avoided the party scene and focused on stability. He even adopted pets, posting about them regularly. His home life became a source of something he'd never prioritized before. Fame used to be everything. Now, peace is more important. Occasionally, interviews would bring up his past. He never avoided the questions. He owned his mistakes. He talked about the arrest, the media frenzy, and the fear of losing everything. But more importantly, he talked about recovery. He emphasized that getting caught had been a turning point, not the end. If that hadn't happened, I might not be here today. His openness made him relatable. In a world full of curated images and fake perfection, Chumlee was honest. He didn't pretend to be someone else. That authenticity became his strength. It also helped shift the show's tone, adding moments of real emotion to a series once focused solely on deals and drama. Over time, producers embraced this evolution. They filmed more behind-the-scenes clips, personal reflections, and emotional moments. Fans responded well. Ratings stayed strong. Chumlee was no longer just a sidekick. He was a core character with a journey of his own. His arc became one of the most talked about elements of the show. He started getting invites to podcasts and documentaries, not just about Pawn Stars, but about overcoming adversity. He spoke at addiction recovery events, shared advice with young people, and encouraged those facing public humiliation. His message was always the same: mistakes don't define you, what you do. Next is I made a mess, but I cleaned it up and kept going. Through it all, he kept his sense of humor. That part of Chumlee never changed. He still made silly jokes, still wore outrageous shirts, and still got excited over weird pawnshop items. But there was more depth now, more self-awareness. People say, "You're different now." I say, "I'm still me, just with fewer bad decisions." As he entered his 40s, Chumlee reflected on his unexpected legacy. He wasn't just a reality star anymore. He was a reminder that public figures are human, too. He showed that mistakes don't have to be final, that with effort and honesty, anyone can rewrite their story. Pawn Stars continued, with new items, new stories, and new viewers. But longtime fans always looked forward to Chumlee's scenes. Whether he was bargaining over a bizarre object or sharing a personal anecdote, he brought something irreplaceable to the show. Heart. One day, people will stop watching. The show will end. But I hope they remember me for how I got back up, and many do. Chumlee's name might always be tied to his legal troubles, but now it's also tied to growth, redemption, and resilience. In a world quick to cancel, he proved that redemption is possibly even under a spotlight, and that legacy, perhaps, is more valuable than anything ever bought or sold at the pawn shop.